Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of DC Stargirl. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously you have Courtney, trying to decide what to do because in this situation, like, everything's kind of going wrong because of Eclipso, and it's like she doesn't know how to fix it. Probably even being scared to... Is it even possible to fix things? Because she wants to be there for Yolanda, but it's like, how can I be there for her? Because she's blaming herself. It's like, right, I dragged Yolanda into this. And, her mom's saying, like, you just try to help her. And Pat's suggesting, like, just give her space. But Mike's like, nah, just kick Eclipso's butt. Like, maybe he's got to definitely be the one behind everything that went down last episode. And, but Yolanda dropped off, Wildcat's mask, so she's officially quitting. And for Courtney, like, she goes to check on a cosmic staff. She's like, I know I never really, like, told you before. You are my friend, and I just wish I could help you. Because that's the most frustrating thing, because right now, like, she feels powerless while, like, all the people around her are being hurt and affected. This is an enemy, like, at least with the JSA, the ISA, it was something you could hit. Like, how do you fight fear itself? How do you fight someone who can make you see whatever he wants you to see? Like, how do you, like I said, you're literally fighting fear itself. An enemy that can get inside your head, make you see whatever you want. Like, which, really quickly, I believe the actor who plays Eclipso, because I've seen, like, videos of, like, I haven't checked him out, but it's, I'm going to probably butcher his name. I think it's, Nick Tarabi, I think, is, the actor who plays Eclipso. It's Captain Boomerang, from, like, the Arrowverse. It's that actor. I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that. I believe that's him. I could be mistaken, though. If it is, though, like, yeah, because I don't think he's popped up as Captain Boomerang since season 5's finale of Arrow. Might have been the last time he popped up. The whole, like, Lee and Yu situation at the end of season 5. I want to say that's the last time he's popped up in the Arrowverse at all. I mean, once again, that was pre-Crisis, so you never know. How the situation is. I mean, we might even have, like, a different Boomerang, just because, like, we got another Dr. Light in a different... You get what I'm trying to say? So, like, you never know, like, how that could pop up later on. Like, I get the feeling that might have been the last time he popped up, was the Lian Yu thing in season 5's finale. But regardless, I even love that Courtney gave the staff a name. She's like, oh yeah, I gotta find a way to help Cosmo. And Pat's like, Cosmo? She's like, it's the staff. She's like, you named the staff? She's like, yeah, well, you named the robot. And he was like, no, I didn't. You did. She's like, whatever. I like that. It's like, yeah, I named him Cosmo because it's like, right, I don't tell you. She's like, I've never told you, but you are my friend. It's like, yeah, that's her partner. Like, we're in this together. I guess you could I think you can make the argument, Cosmo was the first friend she made in Blue Valley. But nevertheless, I think it's so interesting, the two-prong attack that, Eclipso has, like, during this episode, because I think it's because, in my mind, the entire last episode he was focused on Yolanda, so I just assumed, like, he was just messing with Beth. It didn't cross me, like, because at first I was like, I wasn't sure if he was messing with Rick or not, whether that was just kind of the real world bleeding over of, like, yeah, there's, like, all these bear attacks, and, like, now people are hunting Grunt. Like, I was thinking, like, maybe that was real, but it's like, especially when it's like, oh, he killed a little girl. It's like the moment they mentioned a little girl, I was like, I was starting to kind of be like, yeah, there's something a little fishy here, but I wasn't 100% sure. But let's kind of bounce between the two situations. Obviously, like, you have Beth's circumstances where she's getting in contact with OG Dr. Midnight, and it seems like I'm curious. I guess it's because the Shade is in Blue Valley, and now that barrier between what he kind of references, like, the Shadowland. So, like, that barrier between that world and this world is kind of, I guess, like because he has a pair of goggles, his own, and I guess, like, the ones he has right now are the ones Beth have are, like, the OG ones, or, like, maybe an older pair, or just a separate pair in general, and they're connecting to each other. It's like, well, why now of all time? And then I guess it's because the Shade is here, and he has, like, a direct correlation to the Shadowland. But I think maybe the Shade's current circumstances, I'm wondering, is it lowering the barrier, the current circumstances, or is it raising the barrier? But during that time, like, the moment she took the goggles off, you see on her laptop Eclipso's there, and so her parents come in and they want to talk, and they're saying like, right, they've dedicated so much, like they fell in love at first sight, but then like they were saying like we're juggling everything, a job, and I was like, all right, this almost sounds like you're trying to blame Beth. And like for them like not having enough time, and then they're like, yeah, it's your fault. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, and then she starts seeing stuff, and it turns out, you know, she thought she was going to Courtney's house, but then Bruce was there, and it's like, and that was wild. I wasn't expecting. He's like, oh, you don't belong. You're not the right age. You're not the right gender. You're not the right color, right race. I'm like, I didn't think we were going to play the race card in this. Yeah, she kind of like, I feel bad for the actress, especially that kid, because it's like, oh, you know, it's like, obviously it's for the script, he's got to say that, but it's like, it's still awkward and kind of like, oh man, it feels weird and bad that I have to be the one like saying these terrible things. Like, it's got to mess with you a little bit. And that's what I think about it, like on the other side of those things. I'm like, oh, how messed up that's got to make you feel. It's like, I know I'm playing a character, but it's like, you always think that when you have actors having to like say lines like that or be that type of character. But it's like, right, but it's playing into Beth's fear of not belonging, always being an outsider. But when it's all said and done, like, she's following him all over the house. But, yeah, like, they're teleporting all over the place. Even standing in front of, like, OG Starman, Wildcat, and Our Man. And it's kind of like, are you lost? Yeah, because obviously, like, you don't belong. It's like, yeah, like, see, and he's like, see, one thing is not like the others. And he's playing into that of like, right, no one chose you. You lied about being Courtney's friend. You lied your way to the position that you're in right now. Like, no one chose you to be this hero. Like, you kind of lied. Like, you're a liar and a thief. Because it's like, well, to be fair, she got into Courtney's house under subterfuge. She did kind of steal the goggles. But, you know. But at the end of the day, Beth, you know, confronts him. He's like, give in to your fears and stuff like that. You're afraid, but she was like, that's what you want. That's what you need, is me to give in to my fears. And she's like, no, like, I do belong, you know. I chose to be Dr. Midnight. I was like, yeah. And then the moment he comes at her, she puts the goggles on. The goggles have the power to see through his, because at first I thought, like, because he was on her computer that he had, like, he kind of like glamored the goggles, so I thought she had the goggles on the entire time, and this is what almost like a VR simulation. I think that I thought like that's what was happening, but then like her putting the goggles on and then rebooting like basically like showed her reality, and the Dr. Midnight was like, do not take those goggles off anymore. It's like, no, like, I didn't do anything, you did, because he's like been there with her the entire time. It's like, right, you're the one that fought it. And so she looks at her picture and she's like, I'm the new Dr. Midnight. And the JSA database updates, because I think for her, she always had a little bit of an imposter syndrome, and he played into that fear, you know? A lot of those insecurities, while also just being a racist piece of crap. But I wonder, is that like just truly how Eclipso felt? I was saying Calypso. Eclipso felt, or was that just kind of like, no, playing into some level of that insecurity? Because he also leaned into the fact is that Beth always like wore a fake smile, like you always hid behind like that smile, like what was really there. Because out of anyone, Beth was always like I try to smile through everything that's ever happened, you know. And obviously that's gotten a lot harder with everything that's going down. But ultimately, she sits down with her parents, and it's like, no matter what anyone has to say to you, because like her mom talks about the struggles of like coming here and replacing the doctor of Blue Valley. It's like, for one, being the only like black doctor. It's like, I mean, I think they're like one of the few probably black families in all of Blue Valley. But it's like, yeah, she had to win over people by, you know, doing, all she could do was do her best. She could do her best at her job and save some lives, deliver some babies. But it's like, she had to win people over by showing people like, I can do the job, like, you know. And so it's like, no matter what anyone has to say to you, Beth, you're going to work hard because you come from us. Like, we're a family. You're our daughter, and we work. So we still haven't really gotten into why they're getting divorced. I chalked it up to I mean, maybe there's a deeper reason behind it, but I chalked it up to just being a thing of like, right, sometimes people just fall out of love, and that's what that all comes down to. But, you know, who knows under their circumstances. Her family encouraging her to do and be whoever she wants to be. So I thought that was really nice, and all that I'm sure is going to help ease a lot of those fears and insecurities she have, and make it even less likely that Eclipso can attack her with this again. So, like I said, I flipped back and forth on like the whole Rick thing on whether or not it was like, because they set it up to make you think like he's only going to go after them one at a time, because the whole entire last episode was about Yolanda, him going after Yolanda, and then on top of this, like they set up he was coming after Beth next. So I think that like expectation kind of messes with you a little bit. At least it did for me. Like maybe it was clear for other people, but for me, I just wasn't quite sure. I flipped back and forth about the Rick situation. But I think maybe it's just showing just how much more powerful he is. That the fact is the entire last episode, he devoted everything to Yolanda, but now it's like a two-pronged attack against Beth and Rick simultaneously. Because it's so interesting, like where we start off with Rick's episode side of things at the beginning of it, where it's like his teacher came to apologize. She's like, once again, I felt bad about, accusing you of cheating. He's like, is that really why you came all the way out here? And she's offering him like stuff that can lead to financial aid and get him into colleges, because she's like, that way, like she's like, college was like a fresh start for me. Like that way you no longer have to be tied down to how people see you. Get to reinvent yourself, you get to be a new person. But then his uncle comes out, scares her off, and then is immediately like, oh, college? Yeah, right, like you'll be in jail before then. It's like his uncle's just the drunk bastard that he is. But obviously for Rick, it's like, I give everything, and just like everything gets taken away from me, like nothing like pans out. And Grundy comes, and they sit down and talk, and he talks about his uncle like getting like a fighting dog that was kind of like, because of the abuse it went through, it was mean. And one day he told his uncle like it ran away, but in actuality he took it to a different town and made sure it was with a different family. He came back a year later, the dog was a completely different person because it had someone to love it, And even him saying the same thing to Grundy is like, maybe you just need someone to love you. And he's like, right, you probably don't even understand what I'm saying. And then like pats him on the back, and they share the apples and stuff like that. And it's like, it's actually a pretty dope moment. But as he's leaving, he hears about the hunters on the radio, and he's calling up Pat, and they're like, Courtney's like, how could he keep such a big secret like about like him helping Grundy? It's like, but then like Pat's like, probably has his reasons, because Pat would say that, considering like him and Barbara are hiding something from Courtney and the rest of them. Like I said, like even the fact just the real hunt, because when the moment the hunters popped up, I didn't immediately go like, oh, this is part of Eclipse. So like I thought like, oh, like, well, I mean, for one, it's like the signs were there, like why would a little girl be out in the woods, like why would Grundy have done, that didn't make any sense. But it's like, even then, like the hunters, I guess, like, for me, like, I just assumed, like, oh, the hunters got hurt because Grundy was defending himself. I just immediately chalked it up to that. But it's like, right, but Rick's like, I'm gonna say the little girl. But the moment it's like, Grundy's there, his hands covered in blood, I was like, no. In my mind, I was like, yep, it's officially one there. Like I said, I just flipped back and forth. For a lot of people, it's probably like, nah, it was clear that it was fake from the beginning. But for me, it's like, I just wasn't sure. I thought that was kind of a neat element of not being sure. And so Pat and Courtney are there. After Rick had discovered the dead body, and he's just, because also like while they're walking through the woods, Courtney and Pat were like, notice there's a very large lack of hunters out here, even though Rick said there would be. And it's like, that's where I start kind of inkling like, okay, yeah, it's all not real. If they're not running into any hunters at all, it doesn't make any sense that they're out here hunting. Like, why you haven't run into anybody yet? But he runs after Grundy because he's like, you monster, like, how could you do this, you damn monster? And I wasn't expecting, like, when he was going toe-to-toe with Grundy, I thought he was actually beating up Grundy. I was like, that's sad, like, all the progress you made with Grundy's kind of gotten undone. And then the moment they were like, Rick, stop. And I was like, it's not Grundy, is it? And I was like, no, it could be. And they're like, no, it's not Grundy. And Courtney has to shoot him with Cosmo, and then all of a sudden he comes to his senses. It's his uncle he's been beat up on. It's like, woof. And in that moment, like, just like disgusted with what he did, like Rick grabs the hourglass and he shatters it, and it's like, whoa. And it's that, and like we see at the end, Rick gets arrested because it's like, it's like Rick already had like that rap sheet of getting some of just like the trouble he's gotten into. It's just like for it to come full circle like that, for his uncle to have made that comment, and because that all plays into his fear that he would just end up backpedaling, that any progress he made, like that's all people would ever see him as, and giving into his anger, wanting to believe that Grundy could be better, but then it's like, oh no, you're not. But it's like, oh, that was all in his head. And the irony behind it, like, oh, Grundy hasn't changed, that Grundy's the damn monster. But that was also the point, like, that we saw that that's how Eclipso was attacking him beforehand. It's like, right, is Grundy the monster or you? And it's like, yeah, he was going after Grundy for being the monster, but in this moment, he was the monster. So, is there any repairing that, like, he'd have to, like, probably, like, break the hourglass, like, make it, like, his, like, forge his own hourglass, you know, or something, like, if they wanted to repair it. But now they're down to Justice Society of America, you get what I'm trying to say. JSAers is what I was trying to say earlier, but I stumbled on it. So now it's like, you know, Barbara and Mike are talking about it later on. It's like Pat and Courtney are trying to, like, talk at the police station to help out Rick's situation, but his uncle's in critical condition. It's like, oh boy. And as the ambulance was driving away with, you know, police car behind it, like, you see Grundy nearby saying friend, and it's like, oh. Because we know, like, once again, I'm not well versed in everything Solomon Grundy, but I, you know, aside from just Gotham, like, my thought, when I think Grundy, I think of, like, I want to say Justice League Unlimited. So, like, I don't know, Grundy always, like, that's part of his story. I mean, I'm sure it varies from different, like, arc to arc, or, like, you know, whoever's doing the story. But I know because I want to say Justice League Unlimited, it might have even just been the OG, like, Justice League cartoon. But I know that, like, he shifted over and kind of became a good guy. I know, like, I think he dies. I think him and Wonder Woman were, like, I think she's the one that kind of believed in him, maybe? I don't remember. It's been years since I've seen, like, the OG, like, well, Justice League or Justice League Unlimited. But I want to say that was, like, part of the story was, like, Grundy becoming a good guy and, like, sacrificing himself and doing good. So maybe he's going to do whatever he can to, like, help Rick out. I don't know how that's... Maybe his uncle is going to be the deciding factor, because if his uncle recovers, he'll be like... I mean, his uncle has been an abusive dick in his own right, but I think... I don't know, like, it's just, things don't look good for Rick right now. It's just like everything's falling apart because of Eclipso. And, you know, Mike is like, you know, what do we do? And Barbara's like, all we can do is just be here for them when they get back. And I like Mike being like, I'm here for you, Mom. I was like, Mom! She's like, oh, thanks, Mike. And I was like, that's awesome. But then we see, like, the awning or whatever, like, start freezing over, and you're like, now, is that supposed to represent Icicle is actually still alive? Or is that supposed to be Cameron because he's coming into his powers, and it maybe even last episode or so, like, he's known about what, like, it got revealed to him what they've been a part of and what they did, and maybe he just had reservation coming after them until now. I don't know. Like, maybe, like, while this has all been happening, like, Eclipso was also going to Cameron and filling him in about, like, everything that's happening, like, right. So, it's either one of those two. It's hard to say. But it could just be, like, Icicle's actually still alive, so... But the more likely answer seems like it could be Cameron, but that could always still be a possibility. So, it's definitely going to be really interesting to see, ultimately, where all of this ends up taking us. Going forward into the next episode, what is Eclipso's next attack going to look like? How do you remedy this? How do you remedy this Rick situation? Just like I said, like, Courtney was worried about it at the beginning, like everything going wrong, and it just continues to spiral down that path now with everything. So, at least with Beth's help, now keeping the goggles on, she'll be able to fight his illusion, so she can, like, help the others kind of see through what isn't real now, you know. But you know, we'll see how that all plays out. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.